Let's drop the puck and play. Hockey Illuminati podcast. Here we go. We got Kris Versteeg. I assume the boys called you Steger. Must have been your nickname, right?
Steger, Stegalicious, Woogie, shithead,
Okay.
asshole. Yeah, I get a lot of them.
Okay, asshole could be good, but I'm gonna go with Steger. Okay,
Yeah,
just because
let's go with
it rolls off the tongue the best. So Steger, whenever I'm doing interviews with guys, prepping for them, I'm a diehard Leaf fan, and the first things that always come to my mind is like, what type of Maple Leaf memories do I have associated with this individual that I'm gonna be chatting with? There's two that come to mind for you, Steger. The first is that you were the only guy in mainstream media last year, I think one of the only guys, that came out and said Sherratt should have been suspended for the knee on Tavares.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. He should have. I mean,
we won't get too far into that because,
But you can ask me about it again if you ever like. I'd love to give my opinion again.
Okay, well, let's talk about this because as Leaf fan, I'm a Leaf fan, and I still have a hard time letting go what happened last year. People call me salty online, and it's true. I still kind of am because Leafs shouldn't have blown that. And if Sherratt doesn't take out Tavares, the Leafs win that series, and then they probably win the cup.
Yeah, listen, nothing against Sherratt, but he was a maniac in a lot of situations out there, between the cross checks on Matthews at the start of the year to the slashes to the knee.
Yep.
There's just many situations where if I was Keefe, I would have been screaming at Bettman, like screaming at him and the reffing. I don't know who's in charge of reffing, if it's Billy McCreary. Billy's a great guy, but I would have been screaming about the abuse my superstars are taking. And back to that thing, I talked about the reason that Perry kneed him in the head was because the knee that took place at the start. Everyone was looking at Perry. Perry was incidental contact. He was coming back. Maybe only in Perry's mind, he knows how much he could have got out of the way. None of us know that. That's only up to Corey Perry to decide. I truly don't think it's his fault. It was 100% Ben Sherratt's fault. He stuck his leg out.
Yep.
He caught his upper quad right into the top of the knee. He twisted him up, and that's what it is. At the very minimum, a 2-minute kneeing penalty should have been called.
Yeah.
At very minimum. So
yeah.
That's, again, you look at the whole incident, everyone missed the cause of the incident, and that was why I said what I said. But I think once people started to look at it as a whole, they started to realize, especially Leaf fans, because they were trying to look at it from every angle, that was the reason.
100%. And the next day, everyone was looking at Corey Perry saying, "Oh, you didn't mean to. It was an accident," which I agree with you. It definitely was. But that Sherratt play. I tell you, the Leafs would have won the cup. They would have went all the way, Steger, all the way.
Yeah, I don't know if they would have beat Tampa. Last year was a weird year again. No fans in the building.
Yeah.
Montreal kind of has ghosts swirling around too. Like when Montreal makes the playoffs, they're a dangerous team, whether they're first or 8th or 16th. However they get in the playoffs, that's a hard building to win in, whether there's fans in there or not.
Yeah.
But you're right. I do think Toronto could have gone all the way. The other thing I kind of called out was Marner. Marner plays a certain way in season. And I said, Marner doesn't need another skills coach. And when they're asking to trade him, I said, absolutely not. But what Marner needs is a coach to show him where in the playoffs to go in order to be productive game in and game out.
Yep.
And find ways to be physical, not to hit or anything, but to get into the net, to stop staying on the perimeter. So that's going to be the difference this playoffs again.
Yeah.
If they get the goaltending, but if Mitch can take it to the other level, because if Mitch took it to another level, they would have won anyways, with or without Tavares.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, with the playoffs, obviously that's all that matters. You had a bit of a reputation as a playoff guy, playoff performer, 48 points in, I think it was 98 games. Why is the NHL so unique from other sports in the sense that the NHL playoffs is a different beast altogether, more so than the NBA, more so than the NFL, more so than baseball? What is it about hockey that makes our playoffs so different and so much more unique compared to just about every other sport?
Because the rules completely change. They completely change. It's like you go from playing, a hard schedule into like basically you get thrown into a cage with a ball, and you're told to fight it out until whoever's last standing. That's just the difference between the playoffs. I mean, again, as the game starts to progress more and more, a lot of this stuff is going to start evening out. Like they're going to start calling the playoffs closer to the season.
Definitely.
Especially in that time, the playoffs was war. Like it is two guys on the side of each other, cross-checking, sticking each other, slashing each other, fighting, biting, whatever it took I mean, Alex Burrows, how many guys did he bite? I think it was Alex, or who else was it? There's a couple bites that went on in the playoffs.
Yeah, licks, bites, whatever you want
Yeah,
to. Yeah,
like crazy weird stuff sometimes. But at the end of the
yeah,
day, like it's just two different sports. It really is. You got a very physical holding, hooking, slashing, whatever no holds bar type of game. And then when you go to the regular season, that's a lot of like ticky tacky stuff. Even though I
yeah,
believe they should call a lot of the slashes and things like that.
yeah.
But it's just two completely different sports. You watch baseball, basketball, everything's pretty consistent with the way it's reffed from regular season to playoffs, and that to me is the main difference of why you see pretty much two different seasons, and you have to have two different type of teams to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it's so true, and like you said, it really is a war. And I tell you right now, if the Leafs don't win a first round this year, there's going to be a civil war in Toronto, and
Yeah,
we're going to burn the city down because we really need something here in this city. It's been a tough couple of years in Ontario, which we're going to talk a little bit about
yeah.
in a
Well,
moment here.
that division's opening up a little bit. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think if you're a Leafs fan, like
Yeah, I agree.
3 Stanley Cups for Tampa, how much can they withstand? I like Florida a lot, but who knows with injury issues to their top guys all the time.
Yeah,
In Boston, who knows? They always turn it on in the playoffs, but I mean, to me, it seems like there's a little bit of a sliver of hope in that division.
yeah, I agree with you. This year, I think is the most optimistic I've been as a Leaf fan in a long, long time. Florida was my preseason pick to win the cup, but like you said, they're dealing with some injuries. Tampa, they've played a lot of hockey in the last 2 years. The only thing about Tampa that scares me is Andre Vasilevsky in a 7-game series. Like
Yeah.
he can just win it for you on his own.
Or
But
Kucherov, I guess, in a sense too, right? Like
yeah,
he hasn't really played much hockey.
yeah, true. So we'll see. So speaking of the Leafs, my second Kris Versteeg memory related to the Maple Leafs was your second game in Toronto. Do you remember that second game in Toronto against the Ottawa Senators?
Yeah, the Gordie Howe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Walk us through your Gordie Howe hat trick. That's such a unique feat. We don't see it that often anymore because the guys these days that are, the majority of them that are dropping the gloves and fighting are not getting a lot of minutes and certainly not putting points up. So I feel like we're lucky if we get a couple of those in a year.
yeah. So I remember the tip in goal on the 5-on-3. I still don't really remember the assist. I can't take you through the assist, but I remember at the end of the game, Mike Fisher elbowed me right in the head. I was trying to go by him, and he gave me like an elbow right in the head, and I turned
Yeah.
around. I didn't know it was him, and I just slashed him. And then all of a sudden, his gloves were off, and I remember looking at him right in the face, and I'm like, I'm gonna get killed here because he's like, at the time I was about 185. Like I was a lot bigger than I am now.
Yeah.
But he's like 210, solid muscle. And I remember when he grabbed me, he just grabbed both my arms and put them together like a father playing with a child, and then all of a sudden he took his left hand off. I'm like, oh God, he's a lefty too,
Yeah.
But then I kind of snuck free and I got one in and his
Yeah.
helmet popped off. But then after that, he just started like throwing me around like a kid. So thankfully he didn't land any because I'm sure I still wouldn't have woke up.
Yeah. And he has God on his side too. So, like he's getting maybe a little extra luck on the ice with some.
Yeah, I was praying during the fight too. So
I think your goal, by the way, was assisted on Phil Kessel.
yeah, I gotta go look back. I don't fully remember the assist, but I just
I had a quick peek before we hopped on, and
Right.
I mean, back when you were on that team, there weren't many guys that were scoring goals.
No. Phil, and then that's when Kuhlman had a big year.
Yeah.
Grabowski and MacArthur, those are really the guys, right?
Yeah, that's right. And then the Leafs end up trading you to Philly, and stupid trade. They should have kept you because that first round pick that they got in exchange for you from Philly, they drafted Stuart Percy, and he played 9 games and then disappeared. So bad trade for the Leafs getting rid of you.
Yeah, I think if you look at, but if you look at the Philly trade, I mean, they got Gothisbehere in the 3rd round for me, right? When I go to Florida, so I do think though, like when you're making trades, anything after pick 12 to 15 really is really a toss up. You're still going to find guys, Pasternak and these guys later on, but you don't have any shoe in, so it is really hard to draft in that spot. They got 2 first rounders, and I think it was like who else did they get? No, they got a 1st and a 3rd. Sorry,
First and a third, yeah.
They took Lavo in the 3rd, so he's a really good player, right? But
yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah, I mean, we just brought Lupul in. I thought, I had been told about 2 weeks prior that there was about 4 teams going to trade for me. I didn't know if it was going to happen, but yeah, I liked it in Toronto. I thought it was great. I remember Kyprios, I know Kyprios pretty well. He's a great guy, but
Yeah.
I remember I was in Bahamas with all the guys, and he's like saying that I wanted to trade from Toronto. I'm like, I've never told anyone I wanted to trade from Toronto. I actually really like Toronto, and I was just starting to catch my stride a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the most fun from that Leaf team to party with down in Bahamas?
Well, we were just like, I remember gambling a little bit, and
Yeah.
who was it? MacArthur. He was great. You
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
he was awesome. We were down there with Fanuff, all of us. It was a good time. It was a lot
Nice.
of fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. MacArthur was a good player too for the Leafs. He didn't play that long in Toronto, but he had some productive stretches for Toronto for sure.
He was a great player. I remember
Yeah,
playing against him in junior too. He dominated. Like,
yeah,
he's so smart. He was such a good player, and he was an absolute beauty too.
yeah. Speaking of drafts, so you were fifth round, right?
Yep, 2004.
Did you think? Well, yeah, which was the year 2004, so the Ovechkin Malkin year.
Yeah.
Did you think you'd end up playing as many games as you did in the NHL, being kind of a bit of a fifth round afterthought?
Like, you think back, I'm like, I always thought I could play in the NHL up until I was drafted to the NHL almost.
Yeah,
Like my whole life, I'm like, I can play, I can play. And then when you're 17, and then I had a bit of issues off the ice, and then I'm like, oh man, and all of a sudden I'm 19, I'm playing defense on the last place team in the WHL for the Red Deer Rebels. I'm like, my NHL dream's over,
yeah.
right? And then I get called up, and I play for Scott Gordon, sorry, Flash. And he
Okay.
kind of put me, he put me back at forward, brought me in as a 20-year-old, and gave me like hope again. And kind of from there, I started to get the belief back. Like, man, like all these guys played World Juniors the prior year, and they're all playing in the AHL as 20s, and I am too. And I have more points than every single one of them. So I started to kind of put two and two together. Like, I think I'm better than a lot of these guys now.
Yeah,
But I also had to put in the work. I had to get bigger. I had to get stronger. I had to mentally turn a switch, and I had to believe in myself. So that's where the belief came back. And then I made it, I guess, about a year and a half later in Chicago. And then you end up playing that time. I don't think while you're in it, you really understand it. But
hmm
now I look back, and I look back to my mindset at 17, 20 to now, and I'm like, yeah, I was super lucky, very fortunate. I had really good timing, but I also showed up when I needed to. So it was like very, very crazy. But if you were to ask me this at 17 to 19, I would say there's no chance. I'm not.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you end up getting traded to Chicago from Boston, who drafted you, right? What was there? And obviously, like what a turn in your career that was. You spiked the Stanley Cup in your sophomore year. Was there a specific reason in which Boston traded you, like, or was it
Yeah.
more so just like we need to change?
No, I had 49 points. So in the last 20 years in the AHL, there's two players to hit 70 points as 20-year-olds, me and David Krejci,
Oh
right?
wow,
And I had
okay,
49 points in 43 games as a 20-year-old, my first
yep,
full year in the AHL.
wow,
And David Krejci, I think at that time, had a couple behind me, right? And we're playing great together. They're telling me Sean Donovan just got hurt, Glenn Murray just got hurt, and you might get a chance to go play in the NHL. At this time, they were in like 9th or 10th place, right? Boston.
hmm
So we get on the car the morning before. I just had a big night the night before. We played Portland. I had a big night. I think I had a couple goals and assists. And we're heading to Manchester. And I get called up to the front of the bus, and it's Scott Gordon. And he's like, Steger, I just got to tell you something. I'm like, man, I'm going to the show. He's like, no. He's like, you just got traded. And then he slid this paper to me. I'm like, where to? And on the paper, it said Chicago. And I remember I started crying because like I'd put so much effort into like just getting to the AHL, and then also start to believe myself again. And then I got traded. And then I got a call from Sweeney, and Sweeney's like, man, this wasn't me. I'm so sorry. This was Peter Chiarelli. We're only like 2-3 points out of the playoffs, and Peter wants to bring in a more solidified veteran. And he's like, that's nothing against you. And so I have nothing against Peter or any of these guys for trading me.
that's
They
business.
just, yeah, business. They didn't want to
Yeah,
bring in an unproven 20-year-old. So they went out and they got Brandon Bochenski, who was leading the A in scoring. And he had like 13 or 14 more goals than the next guy. I think he had 33 goals in 36 games at that point. And so Brandon Bochenski ended up going right to Boston. And I think he ended up having like 20 points in 30 games. So they definitely got the value for Brandon, especially at the start as well, right? But
hmm
then his career, he needed a lot of power play time, so it kind of fizzled out, and then he went to the KHL. But for myself, that kind of gave me another spark again. Like, I need to prove to these guys that I can be just as good as Brandon and
yeah,
as productive. And that's kind of what started to give me a little more motivation, especially at the NHL level. But that's what I was told, is they wanted to bring in a guy that could fill a spot more as a veteran.
Wow. And then you did more than prove it to them when the Blackhawks took down the Bruins in the finals a few years later against your former team there.
Well, I never actually, you know what? I never even, so I was gone. I was in Florida at that point. So
Oh,
watching,
was that the third cup they won?
that was the
Oh,
second.
sorry, your second was against Tampa. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. That's
I
right.
won against Tampa and
Right.
Philly, but I remember watching that from my dad's best friend. He's a cattle farmer, and I was on his farm watching that finals. And when Bolin scored, I remember the same thing. I was like, it was like, you're so happy for your friends, but you're also like, man, I was with both these teams, and
Yeah,
you know, and so
for sure. Yeah.
it was a hard moment for it was a hard moment, definitely. Like I still think back to, you know, sitting on the farm, had my ACL surgery at the time with one
Mhm.
leg, you know, you're like,
Mhm.
shit.
Yeah. So, and speaking of that second one, when you guys beat Tampa here in Markham, we were really disappointed. Stamkos is a buddy of ours,
Yeah.
you know, Markham guy, and we were all going crazy in that final, hoping
Yeah.
that would be the year. So you broke our hearts back then. I guess whatever year that was, 2013, I think it was. But the first Stanley Cup, you know, obviously Kane gets that OT winner. One of the more strange championship celebrations in all of sports.
Yeah.
Walk us through like that exact moment. Where exactly were you? And how long before the team kind of collectively figured out that what the puck actually went in the net? Like that celebration that Kane is doing is not a mistake. Like this is real.
Mhm. So I remember I just came off the ice. I was kind of like had my head down, and those guys go out. I think it was like Ladd and those guys. And Brower was to the left of me, I believe. I can't remember if it was the left or right, but I remember I had my arm on the boards because I was like trying to suck wind, right? Kind of at the same time, you're a little nervous. You're like, oh God, you know, we just gave up the lead.
Yeah.
So I'm on the boards and I look up and Kane makes a shimmy shake and he goes down the wall and he shoots it. And all of a sudden I heard thunk and I thought it hit the goalie's paddle and went into the mesh, right? So Brower looks at me, he's like, where is it? I'm like, I think it's in the mesh. And I'm like, and then Brower's like, well, I don't see it though. I'm like, I don't see it either. And the puck, and then all of a sudden Kane comes around the net and he's jumping in front. I'm like, he's like, it's in the fucking net. And I'm like, it's in the net. And I'm like, where? I don't see it in the net. So we jump off and I see Brow in front of me and he throws his stuff off. And I remember thinking in my head, this fucking thing better be in the net or we're screwed. You know what I mean? So I threw my stuff off. Again, I get down to the end. I start hugging everyone. I'm like, this better be in the net. It was almost like you're not cheering yet, but you're like, your gloves are off. And then I look down the ice. And at that time, I still saw the ref. He went in the net. I saw him pull out the puck. A bunch of us saw it, and we're like, "It is in the net." And that's kind of when we kept partying. That's when the whole party, I guess, started. And then we got like confirmation from the bench as well.
Yeah. 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 Unbelievable. And like, there's been a lot of really great Stanley Cup celebrations over the years, but like the Chicago drought was so long and it meant so much.
Yeah.
You know, the way you guys won that Stanley Cup that year, it was like one of those really unique championship teams. Encompass what the party was like that night, you know, without going too overboard, I guess, in terms of details. But what were the Blackhawks doing that evening, you know,
Yeah.
into the morning, I suppose?
It was amazing. I mean, you get off the ice and then you have your family there and you're hugging and, you know, you're holding your family. So I remember we were in the room partying till probably 1 or 2 in the morning. We went on the flight that night. We took a flight back to Chicago. And when we got to Chicago, all the firefighters were there and they're shooting water and the plane was driving through the water. It was a pretty amazing sight. And when we came off, all the fans are there.
Wow.
Crazy, man. We got the cup. We went to Harry Carey's, I remember, till probably 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And then after Harry Carey's, I remember we went to this place we used to go to called the Pony. And we were there till probably 8, 9, 10 in the morning. And I remember coming out of the Pony, you know, and I look up and there's helicopters above, like a lot of helicopters above the bar. And they're basically following the limousines home, like telling everyone about the party. Like these guys are just coming out of the bar. And I remember getting in the limo and the helicopters following guys home. It was a surreal moment. And then a few days later, you have like this parade. I remember you can go on YouTube and watch it, but it had to be 2.5, 3 million people. They said 2 million people on the street, but another 500,000 plus in the buildings throwing confetti.
Yeah.
It was a magical moment, man. It was wild.
Yeah. Crazy. And your sophomore year in the NHL too, right? Like,
Yeah, that's you're like, that's what I mean. You don't really realize when you're in it how big it is. Like you're
right.
just
And that kind of leads me to my next question. So like a lot of people that, have crazy achievements and this wild success, they look back on it when they're older and they say, you know what, I wish I maybe soaked it in a little bit more, was more present and conscious as to what was happening, and instead of just kind of riding the wave. And you got to do it a second time with Chicago,
yeah.
right? So when you look back on those two moments, now as a bit of an older retired guy, if you could go back and I guess maybe savor it or experience it a little bit differently, would you?
Um I would do a couple things different. I would do a couple things. Not much though. And again, like I didn't really have, I mean, I don't know. Maybe each athlete can speak to this differently. I don't know if sitting around and taking things in, like I did that. I definitely did that when I came to Toronto. I remember, holy man, like look at all these guys in the rafters. And I remember
Yeah,
playing in
yeah,
Chicago. I remember my first NHL camp. I remember really trying to soak in those moments. But you also have to be very, I guess your mindset almost has to be screw it to an extent too.
for
Like
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
here, like this is me. Like I deserve to be here. So I think it is about a fine line. Where I really tried to soak it in was the Spengler Cup. I knew that was it for me. You
Hmm.
know, I remember before going out to every game, I really visualized myself as a child playing on the street, playing with my parents, playing with my brothers. And I played some of my best hockey at the Spengler Cup. But I remember going out before every game trying to think like, wow, this is it for me. This is really hard. It's emotional. And I just want to like really soak it all in as like a hockey player, think about who gave me every opportunity. So that then and there, I think was a place and moment for me to do it. But as for your career, it's almost like you kind of got to have a hardened mentality where, yeah, you take in certain moments like Winter Classics, I took it all in, but the rest you got to be, I guess you kind of got to just go through it in a sense. I don't know. Maybe every athlete can answer it differently.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's perspective, where they are at that stage in life is different, right? Like an older guy who's, played 20 years in the
Yeah.
league, maybe winning a cup versus a younger guy. But everyone's, yeah, and it's all subjective to,
It's
how
your
you were raised,
perspective.
what your prior experiences
Yeah,
were, etc.
exactly. It's all comes down to your perspective. I would
Yeah.
never try to tell anyone how to feel in
Hmm.
their perspective. Timo Solani plays 18 years, he wins a cup, you know.
Yeah.
He's still killing himself at 35 to win a Stanley Cup. Where at 30, well, 35, I'm laying on a bed talking to you right now. But at
Yeah, that's
30,
pretty good too, though, man. Come
yeah,
on, we're having
yeah.
fun, aren't we?
No, I'm saying this is great, but I mean, at 30, I'd won two Stanley Cups, but I'd been through, I had like six, sorry, major surgeries, and kind of at
Yeah.
30, I was like just hoping to get out to practice for 20 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
without being in like significant pain and not having to take four Advil and four
Hmm.
Tylenol just to
Hmm.
practice. So
Yeah. Yeah.
different
Yeah.
mindsets, different perspectives. So that was just my own perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you and I share a bit of a similar perspective, switching topics here to what is happening in our world these days. It's a very, very strange planet, and it seems to be getting stranger by the month. So, I mean, you and I connected on Instagram the other day, I guess via a mutual hatred, I guess we can call it, for our Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and as well as just how the government in general here in Canada has been handling its pandemic response. And Steve, there's a lot of people that are fed up and pissed right now. Like,
Yeah,
this is not the Canada that you and I grew up in, and the Canada that we're used to seeing. This
yeah.
is unacceptable behavior. What is happening in this country right now?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to talk about. I haven't really talked about it. I've never talked about anything publicly until the other day, where I kind of said my little piece. Um, because again, talking about hockey, everyone's perspective is different. Everyone has different things they're going through. I think we understand a lot now of what's going on. The people that are affected, the ones we need to protect, the ones we need to take care of. But also, the way I look at this is no one, and this is from my own perspective, remember this, no one has suffered more than athletes. No one. They've had to go get their vaccines. They have to do it to play as kids. They have to then get shut down. They don't get to play outdoors. They basically across the board they keep getting shut down time and time again, especially in Ontario, where I look to friends in Chicago, Minnesota. These guys are playing more hockey, more. So they're finding ways to get kids more active almost. Where what we're doing is we're taking it away. In the last 21 months, I know 9 people but in their late 20s to their late 30s OD and suicide, right?
Talk
OD
about a pandemic,
and yeah, and again, there's
right?
that perspective, and you got to take care of the COVID, you got to take care of everything, but it's got to be a holistic view of everything. And I talked to, I know a 10-year-old, a 10-year-old, I'm not going to say exactly what, but he's not doing well. Everything's been taken from him. His friends, his hockey, his sport. Hockey is everything to these athletes. Soccer is everything to these athletes. Baseball doesn't matter the sport. This is their getaway. That was my getaway. I grew up, I was poor. I didn't have much. I had a mother, 3 kids, a father out of a job at the time, uh, raising 3 kids, my mom. She could not have done this by herself with 3 kids at home for over a year. She couldn't put food on the table as it was. You know what I mean? Like, how are people getting through this? We have to take care of everyone. And I think of the athletes and I think of what they're going through on a whole level of, being told to do so many things. And they have done their part, right? A lot of them have gone out and done what the government wanted. They've got what they've needed to do, right? And I commend all of them for trying to do their part. They've all stayed home, but now enough is enough. These kids need to be taken care of. They need to be put in their getaway. They need to be shown love by everyone. This isn't just one way or the other. We got to take care of the athletes. And I think about them all the time, especially Canadian athletes, about how much continually keeps getting taken away from them. And I coach these kids. My son was in the truck the other day and he goes, "Daddy, why are we not going to hockey anymore?" That's just my own perspective. Now I think about how about all the other parents out there that are going through this moment with kids, 6 to 18, kids that have played their whole lives to get to junior. They put in hours and hours, hundreds and thousands of hours a day to get their shot taken away again, right? Just taken away. There's nothing. They're not even helping in the littlest of ways to get these kids back on the ice, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you start to look at government. And if they really want to help, they're going to have to fund a lot of athletic initiatives going forward. They're going to have to keep these kids active. They're going to have to give back. And that's what that's what's going to have to happen, because we need to get these kids back out again. We need to get them back in their safe places. There's a lot going on, and I'm sending my love to every single one of them, because I know how hard it's been for my own kids. I know how hard it would have been for me as a kid, and I couldn't imagine how hard it is for numbers of, millions and millions of children out there. And again, I'm speaking on perspective of athletes. I know there's other kids out there that struggle with comorbidities and other issues. I'm not talking to that. I'm just talking to this perspective alone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of you all.
Yeah. No, well said. And definitely this is just from the perspective of the athletes, because I mean, there's no denying that the vid has taken a lot of lives,
Yeah.
and the virus has ruined a lot of people's lives. And we're not don't misconstrue what we're trying to say here.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with that. Like,
no, it doesn't. It
nothing at
doesn't.
all.
And the effect, I think the biggest thing in the last couple of years has been, that was here's my perspective now. The type of effect this has had on our youth is not being talked about enough and not being reported enough. We talk about the effect on the economy. We talk about restaurants, gyms closure. We talk about, we talk about vaxes. We talk about treatment, etc. But we're not talking enough about what type of effect this is having on kids. I mean, you spoke about it perfectly. Sports is everything for these kids. A lot of kids are dealing with issues right now, depression. Kids that are developing, I mean, their brains are so fragile, and a 7, 8, 9-year-old is living in fear, right? All they know is fear. They can't go to school because they're afraid of a virus. They can't go play hockey because this virus might get them. Everyone is wearing a mask. Children, doctors will tell you that children need to see other humans, adults speaking, their faces moving, mouths talking, to help with their development. So what type of generation are we raising here? In this bubble, and you talk about how our neighbors to the south in the States, a lot of the states have moved on. I mean, there are some states that, depending on what side of the your political views are on, but like I got a lot of friends in the States as well, and they're like, really, you guys are still playing this game in Canada? You're still playing this game?
Exactly. And this isn't a political view, right? Like this should just
Yeah.
be a holistic view on how to take care of people with COVID and how to take care of our youth. And our youth are our most fragile, like you said. They're the ones that are going to be keeping this world going long after we're gone. So
Yeah.
how do we keep them happy and healthy? That's got to be the biggest project the government puts forward after this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell you, Chris, I know there's going to be a lot of people on social media that are going to enjoy listening to this conversation because there are not enough. And here's my opinion as a guy who spends a lot of time on social media and seeing what other influencers accounts are doing. There's not enough people in the hockey world talking about this. There's not. There's a few retired guys, few former NHL guys that I see you. Carlo Cogliacqua the other day was ranting about this on his page. There are other guys, but there's no current players that are bringing this up. They've got to be careful what they say.
Yeah.
But we need more guys in the hockey world, former players, coaches, whatever, trainers, to speak out against this narrative and say enough is a fucking enough.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
that's it. You look at Sean Avery, he's done a lot as well, right?
Yeah, him too. Yep. Yep.
And again, just the players playing are in a really tough spot. Like
Yeah.
they're in a horrible spot. I know what I've actually seen is Carter Hart comes out and he says, the testing for players. So you're starting to see a frustration, I think, within the players. That's on the PA. It's
Yep.
time for Don Fair to step up and say something.
Yeah.
Where's Don Fair? All the money I've paid to the PA, what's he doing right now? He's quiet, on numerous fronts. It's time for Don Fair to get out in front of a mic and say something. So that's just what I personally think. And but yeah, there's just a lot of players that could. But again, it is a hard thing and a hard subject to speak up on. I'm only speaking up on this subject talking for athletes. I'm not talking as a medical professional. I'm not telling you what to do or not to do.
Correct.
I'm just speaking purely as a father, as a coach, and as an athlete, as an ex-athlete, I'm speaking from that perspective of what I've seen it done, and what it's doing to kids. And we need to get them out and playing. I'm just going to keep harping on that. They need to be out and playing. That's it. And the ones that want to be out, let's find a way to get them out.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about? It's interesting. Let's turn the clocks back. Let's say that you're a free agent heading into this summer.
Yeah.
You're a free agent looking at what's happening in Canada. There's no fans in the stands. Their games are getting canceled left and right. Okay.
Yeah.
The way that our government is handling this is very different from the way they're handling it in some parts of the States. If you're a free agent, are you knocking Canadian teams down further on the totem pole because of the lifestyle that is currently, rolling out here in Canada?
I think you have to look at it. I think you'd have to look at it as a free agent. Again, it all depends on what the contract is. Like if you have an equal contract in a part of the States compared to here, I'm sure you're probably looking at the States at the moment. But if you're getting $2 million more to come play in Canada, I'm
sure, of course. Let's say the contracts are fairly even, maybe a little bit more to come to Canada, $1 million more a year. Is that headache worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, for me, it depends on which point of my career you're asking this question. Early on, I think I always take, you take the money. Later on, you go home to where your family is. And that's kind of how I treated my career. I went home to play for Calgary at the end. So for me, it's always about being around my family now, especially later on in my career. So again, I don't know even really if I could answer that question.
Yeah.
If it was equal at this time, probably mid-career, I'm sure I would go to the States. If I'm 26 years old, I've been offered $4 million here, $4 million there. I'd probably go to the States. But like later on in the career and it was even money, I'd probably just go home to Calgary. I loved Calgary and I love being around my family.
And I was thinking about this because I think this is going to play a factor for sure. I mean, like you said, well said.
Continues, yeah.
If this continues, because honestly, the way I see it, things are either going to get worse or they're going to get better. There's no in between. And I think more and more people, like you said, are getting frustrated and speaking out. So I'm optimistic that we are going to break out of this psychosis. Yeah. But if things don't get better, and I'm a free agent, and all things equal, I mean, I'm not looking at Canadian teams the same way, right?
Yeah.
And
again, if it keeps going down this road, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. You have to weigh the pros and cons of every situation. And that's just, about being smart in business and a lot of
Yeah.
things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if this keeps going this way, I mean, the answer is really a no brainer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we're speaking from the athlete's perspective, from a hockey player's perspective. I mean, you look at these Canadian teams right now. What type of unfair advantage do they have not being able to play in front of their home fans? And then, like the Leafs have played 2 games in the last month. They're going to be playing their third on Saturday night. Like,
Yeah,
how difficult is that compared to some of these teams that are rolling?
it's going to be hard. And are they going to like backlog these games? Like, are they going back on the back end, or what's
See,
their
that's the other
idea?
problem too. Like, I don't want my Leafs playing a ton of games
And
close
then
together,
playoffs? Yeah.
getting into the
Yeah.
playoffs. Jack Campbell's a little fragile. We got to be careful with him. We can't have this.
Yeah.
And like, what is going to happen? They're going to be playing all these games so close together.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, I don't even, again, I've been so busy with my company and um, with my kids and coaching. I haven't been able to follow the league close enough. I'm going to start following it now because I'll be probably getting back and doing some broadcasting a little bit here and there.
Yep.
But yeah, so I don't know the question, but or I don't know what they're doing, but if that's what they're going to do, it's going to be a tough haul. If the Leafs got to play 4 to 8 games at the end of the season because of the breakdown, and then they got to go right into a playoff series.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it.
I'm worried, Steger. I'm a little worried.
I mean, that kind of gives Tampa Bay another advantage again, right?
And they've had enough advantages over the years. Enough's enough.
Yeah, 18 mil. Just ask.
Yeah, come on, yeah. Speaking of your business, so you and your brothers founded a sports tech app. Tell us about that. Clever Clips. And by the way, I love that name. Very clever.
Yeah, Clever. Klevr. So, after I retired in 2020, a lot of parents and coaches were asking me to look at their kids' clips. And there was just no sport tech out there that allowed me to efficiently do it, like to basically streamline the entire process of taking a clip, annotating the clip, and then sending it back. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're like, let's just build our own platform. Josh McNevin's also a co-founder, and he's the coach of the Kelowna Rockets. So he kind of came up with this clip button. The clip button's the K button. You could literally leave your camera on for a full hour. And then if your kid scores a goal, after he scores the goal, say at the hour mark, you just tap the button. It'll go back 15 seconds and get rid of the first, 59 minutes and 50 or 45 seconds, right? So it just streamlines it. So then you can take that little clip, you can either send it to family, or you can take it and you can annotate it as a coach. And the way I was thinking about it is, like, I grew up, again, like I talked about earlier, I grew up poor. Like, I couldn't afford hockey in today's world. My mom's told me that a million times. My father's told me that. And I was like, how do I create something that's free that can be for a hockey player like me to reach a kid in a remote area to coach him? So now a kid, say, in a remote area in Alberta, he can send me a clip, I can annotate it and send it back, right? So now you're starting to reach kids in remote areas and almost treat it like also a cameo effect, right? Yeah. So today, personalized coaching is you take a full game, you analyze the full game, you send it to the kid. Well, guess what? The kid only remembers like 2% of that. I'm like, the way we're looking at this is if you send 1 or 2 clips now, you can annotate it, and instead of charging $5,000 to do 2 or 3 games, you charge $20 to $50. So you're keeping price down. Mm-hmm. It's more streamlined, and you're teaching more kids, and you're helping more people at a cheaper rate. So that's kind of like the way I was looking at it. Right now, the current version we made is a free model. We want as many athletes, coaches, and parents on it as possible. And again, that's why I built it. I want everyone to have the ability to do this, because I know, again, what it was like for me growing up. I know, again, with the way the world's going and how expensive things are. A pair of skates is $1,300 without steel in it.
It's ridiculous.
Like,
yeah.
So I'm like, what can I do in my part in order to, help, especially help the kids that are, the parents can't get them the $1,300 skates. So what can I do? And this doesn't only go for hockey. We have baseball, we have soccer, we have golf, we have so many other sports already on the application. But hockey's obviously our beachhead and how we're going into the market. But I just want as many kids using it and parents using it. And
you can find it on the App Store?
Yeah, it's on the App Store right now. It's a free app, completely free, clever.ai. And we're going to release our iPad version in a month. And we're also going to release the crowdsourcing platform. So basically, you come on the app and there will be a lot of hockey coaches. You could tap, say, Kris Versteeg. We could talk about how much per clip I would charge, or other coaches. So you can come on the app and start to look for coaches to annotate your clips and get taught by. So that's going to be a pilot project we release at the end of the month as well. It's exciting. We have golf, hockey, rugby, There should be soccer, so coaches on the platform ready to go. And it's just exciting. This is crazy. It's tech world's a crazy world, man, but
It
it's been
is. Yeah.
a lot of
It
fun.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We fully launched though December 15th. So it's been
Amazing.
a fun time, but the whole thing comes back to athletes, man.
Yeah.
Like studying athletes over the last year, everything that sports and athletics means to them. That's why, again, I hadn't said anything for 2 years. And finally, I just seen what these kids are going through. And it is a crisis for them, man. Them not being out there playing with their friends and their kids. That's why I spoke up on it, just because of everything I've learned
Yeah.
and seen. And I just want to try to support as many kids that were, kids in every position. Doesn't matter if they're rich, poor, or in between. I just
Yeah.
want to support as many athletes as I possibly can.
Yeah. Rich, poor, and in between. You've mentioned a few times on the pod here that, I mean, you grew up really with nothing. Is that, you think, contribute to part of this mentality you now have of really giving back? And I know you've done a lot of things, and you're very charitable as well. You've been helping. I think I read, some really underprivileged families with groceries in Alberta during, this pandemic and things like that.
Yeah.
Coming from nothing and now having what you have, is that, again, part of the reason why maybe you're doing more than some other guys out there?
Yeah, I think initially it was there was like two things. It was like, how do we help as many kids as possible? That was mine and my one brother and my co-founder's position. And how do we help kids that were in our position? Right. So that's kind of like the mentality I had. I know, again, a lot of people are like, oh, Versteeg's weird or crazy. It's just, it is a lot of what I went through in my life is who shaped me today. So yeah, I am a little quirky and weird, but I'm fine with that. But again, back to Clever and the way we founded it, it was to help kids in my position and to help as many as possible. Um, and that this is the way we believe we can do it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really know how else to answer that question besides just trying to help out as many as
Mm-hmm.
possible that felt like they were probably feeling like me at one point at like 10
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah. By the way, quirky and weird is good. Whatever the masses are doing, do the opposite. That's always been my mentality. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I was a goaltender. I'm a former goalie, so I'm a lot weirder and quirkier than you are if you get to know me. But
Oh, fair enough.
yeah, no, that's cool, man. You mentioned, I mean, we know how expensive hockey is, right? You were talking about, skates are $1,300. That's one of the knocks on the sport that I have, is that over the years it's become an elitist game. Like,
Mhm.
especially here in Canada, ice is so expensive unless you get the free ice in the wintertime
Yeah.
on the ponds. But it is unbelievable, and I think long term, if we're going to continue to grow the sport, we've got to find a way to make it more affordable, because what we're seeing in Canada in the last 5-10 years, with the success of, the Toronto Raptors championship, TFC, Canadian soccer, is that, like, I got friends that got kids now, and they're like, I'm not putting them in fucking hockey. It's going to cost me 10 grand a year. Like, we'll put them in soccer.
There's a number of factors, and we've kind of like studied them, and obviously the minor hockey registries have flatlined, right? And even probably trickled down to an extent. There is a lot of teams doing more rogue teams now because they don't believe in the model from 6 to 8 year olds with minor hockey, the
Yeah.
cross ice model, the half ice model, and the no keep and score until they're 8 years old. So I think there's a numerous factors why minor hockey registrations are down. That's we kind of touched on it earlier. Government funding, you
Yeah.
know, we're supposed to be, we're part of Canada's game, and I think this should go across the level for all athletics. What type of government funding can they do to push it into hockey, baseball, basketball, soccer, every sport across the board, that starts to lessen the load on the parent, right? And even if it's a parent that could submit a form about, this is my yearly income, this is how much we would like to get off of sport, they need to create a federal program for athletics and all athletics. And if we can do that, then hockey can be a piece of that. And we can start to lighten the load on the parent, so the parent can bring the kid to more ice time to get them on the ice more. Again, I'm talking about hockey. I believe all athletics should have this. I'm just speaking of hockey.
Yep.
But if we can start to get them on more, we can get them more competition. We can get them better coaching at at a smaller price. It's only going to be better for us across the board. Now, that I think the federal funding will have to come from the NHL and the federal, and Canada, obviously Justin Trudeau. They have to get together. They have to talk about how they're going to do it at every level across the board, whether it's provincially or federally. They got to find ways to give grants to these parents in order to lighten the load. I mean, this is a big project that needs to take place, I believe, after. Will it happen? Probably not, because athletics is really probably the last thing that Justin Trudeau thinks about, to be brutally honest. But
he doesn't think about anything, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, but if we're gonna help these kids now, and we're gonna do what it takes, he's got to step up and create a program for all these families.
We pay taxes out the ass here in Canada. They should be able to make this happen. It's not that hard. It's a great idea, and it's a great initiative, and that's you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
that's
you're gonna need really powerful people to pull it off. So again,
maybe you should get into politics. Ever think about that, Steger?
Never. Not a chance.
Never.
No fucking chance.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, no.
Too honest for politics.
I'm too honest for politics.
Yeah.
I just, again, it's going to take a lot of powerful people to do it. Doug Ford, I'm talking to you too, buddy.
Yeah.
Listen, there should be a high promotion of health and wellness right now, right? People been inside for a long time. They haven't been going to gyms. They haven't taken their vitamins necessarily. I sound like my grandma speaking, but it's true. Those are things you need to do in order to keep up and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So I don't think that's been talked about nearly enough. And again, that translates into athletics. And this is where, I would love to see a program for these children.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't, I don't think we can count on our leadership, if that's what you want to call them, who all, in my opinion, are compromised, but that's a topic for another day.
We could talk about that.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's crazy, man. I want to flip gears here to a little rapid fire. So I put the notion out to the audience, any questions for Steger. So there's some interesting ones that came back. So let's do a little Kris Versteeg rapid fire. Okay. Yep. So these are some questions from the Instagram, TikTok audience. Pete Kelly 82 wants to know where you got the sharkskin wallet with 2 Stanley Cups on the front.
Oh, that's my boy, Pete Kelly. Obviously, he asked the question. Wabi Sabi, you got to check it out. Wallets. He makes unreal handmade wallets.
Do you have the wallet on you right now? Can we see it?
It's downstairs. I got to go through a gauntlet of 3 kids to get there.
Don't worry about it. The kids are busy doing online learning, right? So
yeah,
you can't
exactly. Yeah, they're learning how to watch YouTube right now.
Yeah, there you go. Crash Alberta 77 wants to know if you would go to the Olympics if asked.
Yeah, I could still throw sauce. No doubt. If they need a guy to stand on the half wall and throw some ragu, I'm ready to go.
How's your body feeling?
Horrible. But you know what? Seriously, some cortisone, I could fix that up in like 1 hour.
Seriously, maybe we get you going. Like, it's gonna be really interesting to see the roster that they put together.
Yeah.
For this Olympic squad.
I'm 150 now, man. I'm literally, I think, 155 pounds.
Okay, but listen, you got 2 cups to your name. You know what it takes.
Yeah, no,
You've been there. You've done that. You'd be great leadership for this team.
If they need me, I swear, I'll go get 2 shots in my hips right now. I'll head right to the hospital, get 2 shots of cortisone, and I'll fly to Beijing to play. But I don't know if they need me.
Okay. Well, let's try and get that going and get Steger on the Olympic team. Case 1221 wants you to know if you could do your best Phil Kessel voice impression.
Steger, close the blinds. Oh my God.
I guess that was early morning after a couple of pints, maybe in a hotel room. He's asking you to close the blinds. Is that it?
I've told this story a few times on Sportsnet radio, but we were in Pittsburgh, and he always put the clothes hanger on the lines, and the Clippers, he closed the blinds closed because he didn't want any sun getting in the morning, and it fell off, and the sun was peering in right into his eyes. And so he just wakes up, like, oh, my eyes, Steger, close the blinds, And I'm like, Phil, the blinds are right there. Stand the fuck up and close them yourself. He's like, oh, you do it.
Kessel is like, he's obviously the brunt of a lot of jokes, but like, what a legend Phil Kessel is. Can we just talk about that for a second? Like, beast in the weight room, puts the puck in the net, like lovable character. Like Phil Kessel is legit one of the all-time legends, to ever lace up skates in hockey.
He's a great guy. He, I mean, where was it? Where would we have been? I don't even know. I was going to tell a story about Phil. Let me come back to it. But he's honestly one of the best guys. Oh yeah, this is the weight room. You're talking about the weight room.
Yeah.
So we were Toronto, and I'm like, Phil, you're so out of shape, man. Like, you can't lift. He's like, Steger, let's go in the weight room right now. Squat rack. and he gets in the under the squat rack. He throws like 3 pies on, right? Not even warm up, just puts them on and goes like up and down 10 times, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I haven't even warmed up yet. He's like, how's that? And he walks off. So that's just him, man. He's just a freak. He
Yeah.
puts the puck in the net, and he's an awesome person. One of the best people I've ever met.
Yeah. And he's going to have a case to be in the Hall of Fame when his career is over.
He's a Hall of Famer, hands down.
But the Hall of Fame, and this is a whole other episode we could talk about. The Hall of Fame induction is really strange. Like there are guys, in my opinion, that got in this year that are Hall of Famers, but they shouldn't have got in over other guys. And it seems to me like the selection process there's politics involved. And I agree. I think at some point he will be there, but he may have to wait a little bit.
He's going to have to wait a while, especially because people aren't really going to take this from basically 2007 or 8, I would say probably 8 or 9 to 2016 was like some of the hardest era to ever score. You know what I mean? If you look into the 90s, the dead puck era, and then you kind of look there, like Jamie Benn led the league with 85 points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
Sidney Crosby was like 15 points ahead of the next guy at times, but there was only like 1 out of every 2 teams to have a guy had a point a game for like 8 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Phil had a lot of points, played a lot of good hockey, and a very hard era to score goals. And he's not going to be first ballot, but I think he'll get there.
He'll get there. And I'm sure when he's doing his Hall of Fame induction speech, he'll thank his line mate, Kris Versteeg.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, we're power play guys. I didn't play much 5-on-5. I played with Daryl Boyce, I think it was his name.
Yeah.
And Army, me and Armstrong.
Oh, yeah, Army.
I played point on the power play, and Phil and I, Steger, just come on, man. Come on. Like, wake up.
Okay, a few more rapid fire questions before we wrap up here. Andrew Light wants to know, what does Patrick Kane act like in the dressing room?
He's just quiet. He's not like a comedian or anything. He's just super quiet. It's kind of funny you talk about Phil giving me shit. Kane are on the ice, though. Like, he'd like, Steger, what's your job? I'd like, get you the puck. He's like, yeah, of course, get me the puck. You know what I mean? So he'd always come up, what's your job, man? What's your job? Get me. Because we actually played together quite a bit. So he just would come up and let me know to get him the puck. So I said, yeah, it's fair.
Whoever he's playing with in Chicago right now has got to do a better job of getting him the puck. He's having a bit of an off year. I mean, the whole Blackhawks team is obviously it's a bit of a shit show with a lot of things going on, but he doesn't look himself this year, P. Kane.
Well, I mean, he's playing good. I just don't think there's like DeBrincat is more of a shooter. I don't think they really have like Taze is just starting to get going after missing a year, and Doc hasn't. And I love Doc, but he hasn't played to his capabilities yet, right? So, I mean, there's no one really to consistently get him the puck in good areas. I don't think so. I think that's a bit playing into it. And again, if you're last place, how much motivation? I don't know. There's that factor too, right? If you're not. True. Playoffs, and he's a guy that's a very driven hockey player, so it's probably pretty hard to not be in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what the Hawks do in the next year or so with Taves and Kane entering their final years next year.
I said, I mean, I don't talk to Kane about this at all. Again, when I was doing broadcasting, I never text anyone about anything. I'm not an insider.
Yep.
But I said if I was Patrick Kane, I'd want to go right to New York, right, play for the Rangers. Huge spotlight. They've never won a cup. Most clutch player arguably of all time. Put him in the biggest spotlight and see what him and Panarin can do again. I would demand a trade to the Rangers if I was
honest to God. The Rangers are such a wagon right now. Like without him, could you imagine if they had him?
Yeah, they could trade like Lafreniere for him. Lafreniere, I think, is going to be a good player. But you got like a first overall. You got even maybe Kako. You could package a couple players that do good things for their team, but they're not necessarily making imprints on every game.
Yeah.
2 high picks. I mean, I've kind of looked at that if I was looking at a possible trade. Gives the Blackhawks a little bit what they want, and I think New York moves into a little bit, or they could move into a title position. They're kind of right there. I think they're probably a D man away, and maybe a guy like Patrick, but that's a lot. But
I like that. I like that take. Kane to the Rangers. That could be fire. By the way, it's going to be Leafs Rangers in the East Final. I'm calling it, and then we'll see what happens. What about? I was going to do a take on this next week. Taves, I think Taves would be a good fit with the Avalanche for some reason. I don't know why, but like that type of leadership, maybe on Colorado.
He'd be a great fit with anyone. Back to the motivating factor. I don't know how he feels, but if you're not in the playoffs, it's hard at that age, I'm sure, to play every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's got to be. And you get him onto a team that's winning and you get a hungry Taves, good luck. Right?
Yeah.
He can step it up anytime he wants.
Yeah. Playoff Taves is a whole different
Yeah.
individual,
And
isn't
again,
he?
he doesn't have to be the guy on the Avs if he goes there. He
Right.
can shut guys down. He can still score goals. I think it'd be huge.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking a team like that would be good for him, because he's won't be counted on to be that guy, even as the the main leadership guy, because they got Landeskog and McKinnon and
Yeah, he wouldn't have to. And I think it makes sense. Could they pull it off? But if I'm Taves Kane, I'm just demanding where I want to go. I say,
for sure.
you have one spot to send me, and this is where I'm going.
Yeah. And you would think Chicago, after all that those two have done for the franchise, would be more than accommodating to help send those guys wherever they want to go, no matter what it takes. Type of
There's
thing.
no one in the building when we first started playing there.
Yeah,
There's
that's right.
literally no one. And then when those two showed up, obviously it was like a hurricane of all these great players coming into one team. But
Yep.
the amount of money those two players have made, the Hawks and what they've done for the organization, obviously. And I don't think they wouldn't not give them what they want.
Yeah, I think so. Chicago's got one of the coolest traditions in sports with the fans cheering throughout the anthem. I've never been to a game at the United Center, but it's on my bucket list. If I can ever leave the country to see Chicago play.
It's an amazing place, man.
Yeah.
Like that anthem when it first came back in, that was 2008, I remember. So at the end of 2007, but my first real taste of it was 2008. That was what an experience, especially then, man. Like the loudest I ever heard the building, I still think was in 2009 against the Flames in the playoffs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So.
And isn't that cool going against I guess you were a Flames fan growing up, right?
Oilers.
Oh, you were an Oilers guy, eh? Okay.
Yeah. So I hated the Flames, but I also cheered for them in 2004, right before I got drafted.
Yeah.
It was like parties. I was 17 years old, I'm like, I'm for the Flames.
Are you disappointed that you never got a chance to play for Edmonton? I know you sounded the PTO with them, but you never put an Oilers jersey on. And
No. I mean, I would have liked to get something done, but it just didn't mean. I personally am very happy the way it worked out. Like I love Calgary.
Yeah. And I personally am very happy in terms of how this interview went. This has been great, Steger.
Thanks for having me.
We covered quite a bit. I got one last question for you. You got a tattoo here. What is that on your finger?
Oh, I got my wedding ring. I got a lot. Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff. Okay.
I even got one on my back, not lower back, but I got it on the upper back.
You got a Stanley Cup tattoo?
Yeah, I got a Stanley Cup tattoo. I got a few. Some call me the Illustrated Man,
Oh, nice.
Is
cool.
That Will Ferrell?
Yeah. Me and a few of my buddies always say that when the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, we're not going to get a tattoo. We're going to get our asses branded like cattle.
I'm sure a lot of Leaf fans will do that.
Yeah. Hot iron on the ass to signify all the years of pain.
As you guys should. Yeah.
Yes.
I got a couple buddies that they're farmers. They could do it for you.
Okay, sick. Well, Leafs win this year. They beat the Rangers in the East Final. Like I said, they go all the way. Then we'll set that up. Maybe we'll film some content around it, have some fun.
Yeah, we'll get you. You're gonna have to drink some serious bourbon before you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say, Steger, to wrap up here?
No, thanks. Thanks for having me on again. All to the parents and the coaches and the young athletes. Anyone listening, just sending my love and thoughts to you all. And hopefully also to see you on Clever. Again, it's a really cool platform. It's a free platform, and I think it's going to change a lot of it's going to democratize sports tech for youth sports.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Versteeg, this has been a pleasure. Appreciate the time. God bless you. God love you. And thanks for tuning into the Hockey Illuminati podcast, everyone.
Take care.
Sweet.